Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Operation Grassroots, presented by Briggs Stratton, of course, here on the EKN Radio Network. My name is Rob Howden. This is episode number 3, as I said, April 26, 2018, the recording date. My guest today from Cup Karts North America, Greg Jasperson. And I'll bring Greg in a couple seconds, but of course, wanting to set the platform here right now. Cup Karts North America. Those of you who have followed Briggs 206 racing over the last number of years, that may be new to you a little bit if you're not actually from the area. It's essentially the 206 Cup program. They had to make some changes in the offseason to rebrand it. Just some confusion with Briggs and Stratton. That's something they've done here in the offseason. So Cup Karts North America. Bottom line is, it's the leading Briggs 206 series in the Midwest. 2 different series now, one in the north, one central Midwest. In the north, they run Concept Haulers Raceway, the former Norway track. They run 61 Kartway, Road America, which is very cool, and capping off at really one of the spiritual homes of karting in Wisconsin, Dousman. The Central Series, they're going to be both starting actually at Concept Haulers, a split start. It's going to be cool to have both North and Central starting off. Then they'll go to Midstate, East Lansing in Michigan, and then Camden, Ohio. That's the Central program. Late last September, they put on their first Grand Nationals, massive event for 206 racing on the East Coast. Again, that was at Newcastle. And this program, again, the Cup Karts North America, focused 7-class structure. I always love, you hear us talk about it here on the EKN Radio Network. We love that clean, focused class structure. Nothing but 206 categories, 4 classes for seniors as well. Just straight senior, senior heavy, master, and this year, and Greg will talk about it, the introduction of the CIK 206 class. Greg, there's your intro. How'd that sound?
That was pretty good.
Straight up? Hey, listen, let's just start. I want to take this opportunity really to let people around the country learn more about Cup Karts North America. If they're in your region, they can come racing at any of the events. Of course, the Grand Nationals at the end of the year at Newcastle. I think you're going to see more people coming down from Canada as well. I know a number of drivers went there last year and were raving about the event. And, of course, they love the racetrack as well. But through these Operation Grassroots programs, we like to, kind of go inside these programs where you get a chance to kind of talk about the hurdles you've been through. What's the stuff that's worked for you? That way we can get some of those ideas out to everybody around the country. First and foremost, and I'll call it 206 Cup for a second, we'll transition. But when and how did the 206 Cup / Cup Karts North America program start? What really was the motivation that got you up off the couch? You and I have raced together before. We've went head to head. You and I actually at Rock Island. What turned you from racer to promoter? Because that's a big step.
It was a big step, and for those people that have done it before, I'm sure that they know it's not always the most enjoyable one, especially early on.
Yeah.
Really, what started this was twofold. One, my son was running 4-cycle karts at club level, and as he was getting better, we wanted to kind of take him to the next step. We wanted to take him traveling, go see some other tracks. And from at least where we are in the Midwest, there just wasn't any options. There were some other series still running, out east and things like that. It just wasn't within our budget and our means to take that type of a run out. So we started looking at what we could do around here. We reached out to tracks to see if they wanted to partner up and kind of work together. Each track hosts an event. Everyone put $5 in the kitty. And really what it came down to was no one really believed that 206 racers were willing to travel. Mm-hmm. As it was such a budget-oriented class, especially when it first came out, the perception was from everybody we talked to that it just wouldn't work. You tell my partner and I something won't work, and we just enjoy trying to prove people wrong. So
good for you.
So that's kind of what kicked it off. From there, we did find a few tracks that were willing to work with us. In fact, a couple of the tracks, we crashed a club race. So what I mean by that is we came out to one of their events and simply added on a class.
Yeah.
In fact, I believe it was 3 classes, if I remember right, for the first year. And by doing that, we were able to at least get a little bit of momentum going on little to no budget. We got such a good response from there. We started scheduling races and booking tracks ourselves, and the rest is, I don't want to call it history because we're still working at it, but the rest is history.
So, let me ask you this. Over the last 4 years, how happy have you been with the growth? And, anytime, as you kind of mentioned it, primary hurdles, what are some of the stuff that you had to deal with?
Growth, yeah, we've grown substantially every year. There's some years we've seen 50 to 60% growth in our entries. Would I love more? Of course. I want this to get to a type of deal where even at our divisional level, we're seeing 150 plus or minus go-karts. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, karting as a whole, as we all know, took such a hit, 5-10 years ago with the economy. We're still building back up to that. I don't think that there's simply enough racers, especially in the Midwest, to justify those kind of numbers right now. The fact that we're getting the numbers that we have, I think, is a testament to what we're doing. So as far as hurdles, we could go on and on. One of the biggest things that we've got going for us, and to our detriment, it's just myself and my partner. We don't have a board of directors. We don't have consultants. It's he and I. The great part about that is if we need to pivot, make a change, do something different because the racers want it, the series needs it, we can do it very quickly. Mm-hmm. The downside to that is there's only two of us to do everything. So we find ourselves a little overwhelmed at times trying to keep up with stuff. But in general, that's one of the big things. Another one is by us charging lower entry fees, sometimes it's hard to get into some of these tracks. And it's actually a testament to the tracks that we are at, that they all see the vision, see what we're trying to do, and are willing to help us build it. Because if we're charging less money, the tracks make less money.
Yeah, and that's something we're seeing across the board, aren't we? That the tracks are trying to get more money for each race weekend, and you're trying to keep the costs low. And then you're looking at your budget line, and you're seeing some of these massive numbers to rent tracks. Obviously, in talking to a lot of the promoters, that's one of the big issues is the fact that these tracks are just super, super expensive. And I'm happy to hear that those tracks are working with you, because I think, we can all talk about this, Greg. It's the foundation of karting is Operation Grassroots. That's why we're focused on it so aggressively with eKarting News, because that foundation is where everything starts. You need to have 10,000 club racers so you can have 4,000 regional racers, so you can have 1,000 national racers. That's just what it needs to happen. So I'm glad that they're working with you. What can I ask? What is your entry fee, anyways?
This year we are charging, if you pre-enter, it is $120. Yeah. So it's $60, per day. You got your wristbands and stuff like that. Essentially, what we've kind of tried to structure this around is we want to be able to see the dad and his son show up in the back in their pickup truck with the go-kart hanging out the back of it. Yeah. And for less than $200, they're going to spend $200 or less on all the stuff they need to race. Now, that doesn't cover their tires and their expenses. I get that. But we don't want to see these people having to write these $500, $600, $700 checks to go run a single class. To me, that's not what this is supposed to be about.
Well, what you're doing is you're providing that regional level. I loved regional race when I first started. I ran at my club and I ran the OKRA. That was our regional series in Ontario, and I loved it. To do this, obviously, to have the lower entry fees, you're working with your tracks to try to get a reasonable track rental price. You've got to have a pretty good group of sponsors and promoters that are kicking in some money as well to make sure you guys have the funding you need to put this series on.
Well, absolutely. It's sponsors, promoters, and quite frankly, our staff. And it goes unsaid often enough. I've got, 4 or 5 guys that have been working with us since we've started this. If they get their gas money and their hotel covered, they're happy. None of the guys that are working at this are doing it for anything other than the love of the sport. But you're absolutely right. Sponsors is what's really took this from a 3-race deal where we were crashing on people's clubs to the level that we were at now. We've had some sponsors that have been with us since 2015. We've got guys that just signed on this year. Companies like Viking Kart Products, Faster Motors, they've been with us for quite a long time. We've got a lot of new sponsors too. Zamp Helmets, CKT, CRP. These are companies that are just kind of coming into the fold now that are seeing what we're doing.
I like that. I like seeing new blood coming in because, just over those last 4 years, I'll just this quick line here. You've done it. You've been that regional series that paired with clubs, tagged on to clubs to being a standalone, and people are seeing that. I think they're seeing the dedication of what you guys are doing, And if you're talking 10% growth, I know you want more than 10% growth, but that, I think that's always ideal, because you can manage the growth, you can manage the expansion, and just like compound interest, you get 50, 10% is 5. But the minute you're 60, your 10% is 6, then it's 7, then you keep going up. So congrats on that. Continue to tell us about the guys that are working with you.
Well, yeah, and to that point, a lot of the sponsors are seeing the same results. A lot of the sponsors that we've had, a couple that come to mind that have been with us a long time, Target Distributing and NorAm Racing, not only are they staying with us, they're up in the ante and helping us more and more every year, because they're seeing the benefits of it, not just in recognition and thanks from the racers. I truly believe they're seeing it on the bottom line, because although we might not be where people start out in karting, our series is not necessarily designed for someone who just bought a go-kart to go racing. We welcome them. We love to have them, and we do get them. But instead of us trying to grow the club level, because I did that for many years at the club that I ran out in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, it's hard to get people to join and start into a new sport when they know that there's nowhere they can go beyond the club. We get a lot of parents that, they look into getting into go-kart racing. Their kid wants to go-kart race. Well, if they're choosing between 2-cycle and 4-cycle, there's a ladder system in 2-cycle. There has been for years. It might change throughout the years, but there's definitely a ladder system. You can work your way up. There hasn't been an established one in 4-cycle, and that's kind of what we want to help be a part of. And that's why, some of these other companies that have come on board, they see the benefit to it, because as we're able to grow that, there's going to be more racers in the pipeline. That's why we've got companies, Boone and Sons out of Rochester, New York. They just signed up to be our Central Division sponsor. And Kart City Performance, those guys are going to be our North Division sponsor. So now we've got these two companies that have never been a part of the series before that are right away jumping on the bandwagon.
I love that. Hey, you know what? And here's a good time to just give that little line for anybody in karting, anybody that supports your series, runs your series. If you're a racer, support the guy who's supporting your series. I always say the same thing about eKarting News. I want people to support the advertisers they see on eKarting News, because if it's not for the advertisers, we wouldn't be around. Same with the series. So, right, you're saying that your sponsors are starting to see the return from the growth of the series. We just want to get that out there to everyone. Yeah. If you're a racer, support the companies that are supporting your series. That's crucial. That's all. I love to hear that.
Absolutely. And, in talking to a lot of these sponsors, a great one that I always like to bring up when I'm talking to other sponsors is Vega Tires. Vega was the tire company that we went with our second year. We've been with them ever since. And Vega took some big steps with us. The tire that they gave us the first year out was a great tire, but it wasn't close enough to what the racers were used to that we had raced with. So instead of opening up the catalog and just handing us the next tire in line, we actually went down there and we helped them develop a tire that, at least in our opinion, fit closer to what the racers were looking for. We ended up with this great tire, the VAH. It's been a great tire for the series, and Vega is seeing the returns on that, because they are now seeing other series, other tracks jumping onto this tire for their 4-cycle programs, because it's a proven tire to work for 4-cycle karting. So that's just a great example of what some of these sponsors are seeing.
I love it. Now here's something I think that's crucial to, and again, this is what we talk about, these Operation Grassroots podcasts, trying to help out the whole sport. Let me ask you a question. What do you think is different about your series that has made it so successful?
The big thing with us, you always try to pat yourself on the back a little, maybe, but I think we've got a few things going for us. First off, the racers that have come to our series have been great. Some of them have come from other series. Some of them it's new, a regional level type series is new to them, but the atmosphere that those racers bring is contagious. You come to the racetrack and you're having fun. And that's what those two things hand in hand. When people are having fun, things go a lot smoother. You have everyone has an enjoyable time.
Very true.
Don't get me wrong. It's racing. It's very competitive. It's actually some of the most competitive karting I've been a part of. And I've been doing this for 15, 16 years now. I'm amazed at how close the finishes we have against, you've got a guy in a brand new top of the line kart racing against a guy in, I'm not kidding you, a 14-year-old kart that's been welded together 20 times. And they're coming across the line side by side, lap after lap after lap. So the competitors, and the other thing that I think really helps, we've developed this somewhat unique rule book. More and more series and tracks are kind of adopting either our rule book or something similar to it, but we wanted something that was encompassed more people. With how limited the number of racers became that were out in the market, we needed to attract as many people as possible. So what we did was we kind of went through and we drafted a rule book that we felt more people could show up and race without having to spend a whole bunch of money to change something over on their cart. If it was a cart that was legal and safe to race in any of the established series of rule books that were out there, we tried to find a way to make that fit into our series. By doing that, we have a whole bunch of people that can show up. They could be a guy from Canada can show up, come down here, and at most maybe 5 minutes and a few zip ties or some safety wire, and he's completely compliant. And the really neat part about what the 206 engine adds when you put it with that kind of rule book and that kind of package is you get this insanely competitive racing that it's so close, and it really just kind of shows, where people's focus needs to be.
I like that. That's solid. Now let's wrap up this first segment here. And I talked about it at the very start. The series obviously underwent a rebranding in the off season to move away from, I think, the appearance that it was an official Briggs series. I understand that kind of conflict there. How was the process to come up with a new name? I know I've built a lot of logos, and you come up with names I try to come up with names for our podcasts or whatever it may be. Cup Karts North America. What's the ideology behind the new name?
Well, Cup we're kind of stuck with. We were 206 Cup for actually the first year. We were LO 206 Cup. Yep. And then the folks at Briggs called me up and said, we're going to try to drop the LO. We just want it to be called 206. I was like, oh, no, that's great. It's easier to say. Well, it took us about 3 years to get everybody retrained for that. Fast forward, we're 206 Cup, and you're absolutely right. The guys at Briggs and Stratton simply felt that, it was a little confusing. Some people felt that it was a series that was being ran by them, and that's obviously not what the intention was. So what we decided to do is try to find something that we could rename to that people could still kind of figure out it was us. So we were stuck with Cup because everyone has just called us Cup for years. The North America thing, it kind of comes back to the whole deal with the rule book. Yes, at our Grand National last year, we had racers from all over North America. We had, I think, 27 or 28 drivers from Canada. Nice. If I remember correctly, we had one or two that were out of Mexico. And we even had some guys from beyond North America. There were a couple from Brazil. But we didn't want to come up with a name that regionalized us, even though it's a regional series, because we want people to realize that everyone's welcome to come and race with us. And that just, it seemed to fit.
I like that. Solid. All right, guys, stick with us. We got more to come. Talking here with Greg Jasperson, the essentially president of the Cup Karts North America program. After this break, we'll come back and we're going to talk about the 2018 season.
For over a century, Briggs & Stratton has had a commitment and passion for racing. It's a DNA found in every engine we build today. So whether you kart race, Baja, race quarter midgets, or believe that dirt and snow are just God's way of adding to the challenge, the dedicated spirit of every Briggs & Stratton employee stands at the fence waiting for the green flag to drop. Briggs & Stratton Racing. What powers you?
Are you ready to get the 2018 season started? If you're like us, we're ready to get out of the snow and back to the track. Franklin Motorsports is a leader in the karting industry. With over 50 years of combined karting experience, we can provide you with everything you need to go racing. With a large online product selection, select track support events, and a wide variety of shop services, Franklin Motorsports is your complete karting source. We specialize in IAME engines, tilt seats, and of course, our championship-winning Merlin chassis. If you're ready to take your racing to the next level, come join us at Team FMS. We've been supplying racers with start-to-finish support at race events for many years. From providing a helping hand at a weekday test outing or club event, to full arrive and drive packages at the highest level of karting competition. For 2018, we'll be attending the SCUSA Winter Series and Pro Tour, the United States Pro Kart Series, and the Route 66 Karting Series. For all things karting, visit franklinkart.com.
If you want to drive the best, drive a CRG. Our countless race wins and championships prove this fact, including taking the KZ Finals at the SCUSA Super Nationals and the CIK World Championships in both 2016 and 2017. Our material is second to none. After years of independent American importers, CRG is now managed directly by the factory and run out of our state-of-the-art headquarters in Texas. CRG Nordam is the American arm of the CRG factory in Italy, and we're serious about success. We stock a wide variety of parts in all of our chassis, from the CRG Hero for the mini categories, to the Heron for tag racing, the Road Rebel for gearbox competition, and the new FS4, which has been designed specifically for American four-cycle Briggs racing. If you're ready to step up to the national level, do it with a factory race team that competes across the USA. CRG Nordam is a full factory effort with the best personnel and the finest equipment. We're serious about winning, and you should be too.
Welcome back to episode number 3 of Operation Grassroots, presented by Briggs Stratton, of course, here on the EKN Radio Network, talking with Greg Jasperson from Cup Karts North America. Greg, let's dive in. We talked about the ideology of the series. Let's dive into the 2018 season, because the growth is happening. Stability, of course, as well. Every new year brings more stability. How are things looking? What's the breakdown for the North and South program?
Well, we've like you touched on earlier, we're going to do something new this year. We're going to have both the North and the Central Division start the year off together. It was something that we kind of thought would be really cool. First off, Les at Concept Haulers has been great to us over the years. It worked out great with his schedule for us to do it this way. It's a bigger event. It's a lot more work on both of our parts to do it, but we thought the racers would really enjoy starting the year off with a big, NASCAR starts off with Daytona. It's just kind of the same mentality. We wanted to do a big deal at the start. From there, North is going to break off and obviously do its own thing. From there, we go to 61 Cartway, the Nielsen family's track right next to their house, and it's a beautiful track. It's a really cool track. It has a lot of curves, a lot of elevation changes, and it races extremely well with a 206. No surprise.
I've never actually been there, but it looks like a badass racetrack.
Well, I guess think of it this way: you've seen Tony in a 206 or any four-cycle kart for that matter. Imagine giving him a pen and paper and letting him design a track that he thought he'd get around better than anybody. So yeah, it's a very fun track. After that, we go to Elkhart at Road America. They are repaving the track this year, so it is going to be a really, really cool opportunity. We've been going there. They were one of our first tracks. We haven't been able to go there every year, but they were one of the tracks that we went to the first year that took that leap of faith with us. Mm-hmm. So we like trying to go back there as often as we can make it work. And it's such a neat facility because you're surrounded by
it's Road America.
Oh yeah, you're surrounded by 4 miles. I'm trying to remember what was there last year, but I believe it was a vintage event was on the big track last year.
Oh,
so you've got
that's nice.
You've got guys while they're wrenching on their go-karts, looking over their shoulder, and they're seeing a 85, 86 vintage Indy car driving down the backstretch, and it's just a really neat atmosphere to be a part of.
Love it.
And then finally we go back to Badger. Dousman's been one of the four-cycle staples, is at least in the Midwest for at least as long as I've been a part of this, and I'm sure longer than that. So, they did some repaving and changed the track around a little bit last year, and it really did change up the character of the track, and it's a lot of fun. It put in some new passing opportunities. It definitely changed how you set the kart up. So it was really neat to see that last year, and I'm looking forward to see what people do with that next year.
Nice. Let's move to Central. Obviously, starting off at Concept Haulers with the big show with North and Central. Then you go to Mid-State.
Yep.
I like the deal there too.
Yeah, Mid-State's a track. Our first visit there was last year. It was a great race. We had good racing on the track. The only downside to it, I believe, it was 109 degrees out that day.
Oh, wow.
In fact, there were a couple clubs in the area, but at least nearby, that actually canceled because of the heat. We got on the phone trying to call people saying, hey, you can come up and but obviously with the temperature, no one wanted to do that. But so
wow, that's tough.
Yeah, so we're going to go back to Mid-State, and we're going to put on a good show there because it's another old four-cycle track that just races great. Mm-hmm. Then from there, our first visit ever to East Lansing. We're going to head out there. It'll be our first time ever there. I know it's another one of these tracks that's been around a really long time, and you can kind of see a pattern here. We like going to these vintage go-kart tracks.
You're going to the tracks that were built for essentially four-cycle racing, the more narrow go-karts, right? And I love the fact that you're going there because these places still deserve a top quality regional program, and that's what you guys are bringing. I think it's great. I love it. I know that David Cole's looking at that event.
Yeah,
because he's looking at, he wants to go racing. I'm like, take the Aluminos and go run.
Yeah, we've been talking about either of you two coming out for a while, but Cole's a couple times told me that he's coming, and then something doesn't work out, so he's not going to have an excuse on this one.
And East Lansing's it's not even that far for me either. I think it's about an hour and a half for Dave. It's probably only about 3 or 4 hours for me. So you never know. I'll have to look at the schedule.
Well, if we can get both of you in the same class, I might have to double up my track staff, though.
Yeah, you might. All right, so wrap it up. Where's the finale for Central?
Finale for Central is going to be out in Camden at OVKA. Again, another staple track in the four-cycle racing community. We went there for the first time last year, and honestly, it was my first time ever there. As long as I had been four-cycle racing, I never made it to Camden. And I was just great staff, great people. The locals were extremely helpful. So we're very excited to go back to that. And the cool thing is that we've got a couple little things that we haven't told anybody about yet. But for both North and Central, round 2 and round 4 at the drivers' meetings, Briggs Stratton has donated us some of their brand new generators. We're going to give one generator away at each one of those races at round 2 and round 4. And then the other thing that's been a little bit in our pocket that we haven't told anybody, we're going to have 2 night races this year.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yep. 61 Cartway is going to be a night race, as well as the Central Final in Camden. They're both going to be raced on Saturday under the lights. Sunday, everyone wants to get home on Sunday, so we're not going to do that. But Saturday night's going to be under the lights.
You know what? There's nothing like karting under the lights. I love it. I like to see the addition of that. That's really cool stuff. Now, so there's your lineup. I'll give you maybe just a very brief opportunity. I know we talked about this before we came on air. I know you guys were looking to go to Florida. What's the status on getting a Florida series going? I know there's a lot of racing going on down there right now. Is that kind of been put on hold?
Florida right now, yes. For this year, Florida's definitely on hold. We thought we had a really good plan in place to put Florida together. And there were some miscommunications on our part and with a couple of the people that we had down there kind of helping us put it together. One of the tracks we didn't, although we thought we had a date confirmed, there was a miscommunication on what the date was. That kind of sent everything else into motion. We actually almost put the series back together. 2 of the tracks down there were insanely helpful. The guys at Jacksonville and the guys at Bushnell were going out of their way, making phone calls, trying to find ways to make arrangements and extra people to help us put a new schedule together. Ultimately, though, we made the decision that we wanted to postpone doing it this year because if we're going to do it, we want to do it right. We hold ourselves to a high standard, maybe not as high as everybody else, but we hold ourselves to a high standard, and we wanted to make sure we could put it together. So I'm not going to say it's on the table or off the table for next year. We're definitely looking at it. We want to get this season started off and make sure things are going in motion in the way they need to go, and we'll look at it again from there.
Simple fact is that there is concepts and ideas of expansion to other areas. You guys have a program you're happy with and you're proud of, and you could badge a program anywhere.
Absolutely. And that's always an option. That's something that we spend a fair amount of time talking about with other people that call us. It just needs to be done right. That's our big concern. The advantage, like I touched on before, that at least, Steve, my partner, and I feel like we have is that with just the 2 of us, we have a lot of control. And we can make sure things are going the direction that at least we feel they need to be. Now, if we're right or wrong, well, then we know who to blame too. So we've had a lot of interest in trying to bring this to other communities and other areas, and we're all for it. We just got to make sure that the people are in place to do it correctly. So it's always something that's an option. But North and Central, they're our bread and butter. They're what helped us get here, and we're going to make sure that that's done right.
I like that. Now, one other big addition, you guys are adding a full CIK 206 class. It's for this year, the first time, correct? Yep. I like that. And has that been a lot of feedback from guys with the CIK carts saying, "Hey, let's have a full CIK class"?
To a certain extent, yes. You always get people that say they want one class or the other. And the bodywork thing is probably one of the most talked about things in four-cycle karting there is. Between bodywork,
no doubt.
If you want to talk bodywork and tires, you could probably do 10 podcasts on just those things.
You're exactly right. Yeah.
We actually took a poll of approximately 150 of our racers that we had over the course of the last 2 years, and they were very opinionated on what bodywork they thought was better or worse for whatever reason. And then at the end of it, we asked a simple question of, would you rather have more classes with segregated bodywork, or would you rather have big classes with everybody together? And all of them answered, well, yeah, we want to race the most people. So we were actually really torn on what to do there. Ultimately, we decided adding the 206 CIK class was the right thing to do, simply because a lot of the chassis manufacturers aren't supporting the other bodywork anymore. And in talking to a lot of those racers, they're not comfortable making the modifications to a relatively brand new kart to get the bodywork on. You can argue either way you want if it's an advantage or not, and I don't want to go into that. But ultimately, we knew we were losing a small majority of people because we didn't have the bodywork. So by adding the class, we've now come to see in some of our entries that we've got guys that are going to run both. And we've, and
I was just going to say that.
We saw that at Grand Nationals last year we did run a CIK class, and we had a great turnout for it. Quite a few of the Canadian guys ran that class. They did run the open class as well and did very well. Yep. But just the way that karting is going and the way that the bodywork thing is going, we felt it was time for us to look at it. So by adding this class, we're going to see what happens.
I think you have a focused class structure as it is. It's not like you're up to 10 or 12 classes. You have a nice tight class structure. So having the 206 CIK program, I think it's good. I think it's going to allow the guys that want to run that, like the Canadian contingent, will definitely want to run CIK because that's all they have in Canada. But there's obviously a lot of guys that still love the bodywork. I think it's a great call, and I think listening to your racers, obviously, very important. Greg, stick with us. When we get back after our final commercial break, we're going to talk a little bit about the Grand Nationals, talk about the kickoff on the first weekend of May, and just kind of look forward to the remainder of the season. Folks, stay with us. More to come here. Episode number 3 of Operation Grassroots.
Hey everybody, this is Chris Wheeler, Director of Motorsports for Bell Racing USA. For the 2018 SCUSA Pro Tour, be sure to check out our partners PSL Karting for all of your on-site needs, from helmets, visors, accessories, and all hardware, so you can stay safe on the racetrack. New for 2018, the CMR KC7 Carbon, the first of its kind, the only carbon helmet in the world approved by the CIK for youth use. Check it out at PSL Karting, and thanks for tuning in to EKN Live.
After a long, cold winter, summer is fast approaching, so you know what that means. It's time to sign up for Nitro Kart Summer Camp. Our first summer camp last year was a great success, so we're doing it again on June 29th to July 1st at Carolina Motorsports Park. Nick Tucker and guest instructors will teach winning racecraft techniques such as qualifying, race strategy, passing, drafting, and defense driving. And guest experts will discuss subjects such as driver fitness and nutrition, and marketing and sponsorship. We'll also teach the kids basic kart maintenance, and the parents will learn advanced tuning tips. Nitro Kart Summer Camp is for Nitro Kart drivers only, but arrive and drive packages are available. We'll have special offers on new Nitro Karts since we know you'll want to buy one if you try one. Space is limited, so go to nitro-kart.com to sign up today.
Hi. This is Ben Mayer, factory Nitro Kart driver number 67. I went to the first Nitro Kart summer camp last year and I loved it. It made me a better driver and it'll make you one too.
Kartlift has been designing, engineering, and building innovative kart stands since 2003. Our flagship model Winchlift LT is the motorized workhorse of our kart stand lineup and should be the foundation of your karting program. When it comes to test days or race days, the Winchlift is an invaluable tool that allows you to head to the track to test and tune anytime, knowing that your kart will easily be lifted with the press of a button. Add our innovative winch stacker, and now you can double stack 2 carts on top of a folded down Winchlift, saving space in your trailer or garage. If a lifting kart stand isn't for you, then one of our traditional folding scissor stands, double or triple stacker stands, or upright stand should fill the need. Every one of our kart stands features flat-free wheels and casters and a durable powder coat finish. Check out our full stand lineup as well as our chassis skid plates, tire changers, and accessories at kartlift.com. That's www.kartlift.com.
Welcome back to the EKN Radio Network. Rob Howden with you. Operation Grassroots, episode number 3, always presented by Briggs Stratton. Talking with Greg Jasperson from Cup Karts North America. All right, Greg, let's jump in and kind of cap this thing off. Let's talk about the Grand Nationals. Trying to put that one big race on late September. Most series are pretty much wrapped up, but just that, I guess, really just a really solid East Coast 206 massive weekend. Big enough to draw, as you said, from Mexico, from Canada, from wherever, because everybody just wants to race against big fields. Tell me about last year's Grand Nationals and what you've got planned for this year.
Yeah, well, I mean, last year was I'm going to call it a leap of faith, because it was a lot to do and not knowing if the people would come. And again, we're kind of back to the original thing where everyone said 206 racers don't travel. Thankfully, the guys at Newcastle were willing to give us the opportunity to hold that race. Newcastle is, as everybody knows, one of the nicest tracks in the country. They have a large operation, and it takes money to feed that beast. They were willing to help us out in ways I can't even begin to go into to make that happen. I think a lot of the racers saw that, and they realized that there were a lot of companies. We added, I think, 7 additional sponsors in the last 3 to 4 weeks before that Grand National race, because people just saw what was going on, and it was everyone was just coming together to put this great race on. And the best feedback that I got was a lot of the old time racers that had come out, whether they'd been racers with us in the past or not, but they had said, God, this feels like go-kart racing was 20 years ago, just the atmosphere and the people and the way it was all working. And that was a really neat thing to hear. And the best thing is the event in general went off really, really well. We had some great racing. People were really pleased to see that we were actually doing tech throughout the entire event, not just at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And the turnout was phenomenal. I don't think we had a single class under 10 carts. And there were classes upwards of, I believe, 40, 50 carts, if I remember correctly.
That's solid. That's awesome. So this year's race, anything new planned, or, hey, you know what? We did a great job last year. We're going to stabilize what we did, last year to come this year. It's the end of September, correct? 29th, 30th, or something like that?
It is the last weekend in September. It is probably going to be, I know it will be a bigger event this year. We got some secrets that we're going to kind of keep close to the chest. We're going to add some stuff. Obviously, we want to make it a better event. One thing, we did make a couple changes that we've already talked to people about, though. And one of them is the format. All of our events throughout the course of the year and at the divisional level, Friday's a practice, but it's optional. People can come. They don't have to come. Saturday and Sunday are both race days, but they're separate. So if you wanted to show up for just Saturday or just Sunday, that's completely up to you. And we do have people that do that because they have busy lives. We did the same thing at Grands last year, and for a lot of reasons, it was just too much. Having to do an extra awards ceremony, having to do points constantly. And for some people, it was a little confusing when you had people that were new to the series, which that type of event is going to draw. They just didn't quite understand it or weren't used to that. So for this year, we've changed the format around, and Saturday and Sunday, it's going to be a combined. Whoever takes the checkered flag at the end of the day on Sunday is going to be the Grand National champion.
I like that. More of a Super Nationals kind of thing where you got to get qualified race and then one main event, one winner. Trust me, I always like one winner. I understand the concept of having 2 races, so you can have a bad Saturday. You get to come back and kind of get your retribution on Sunday. But I'm a big fan of one race. Get in there and have that one guy or girl winning. I like that. That's
and to that point, one of the things that we did last year is we had transfer points. So you earned points throughout the divisional series.
Okay.
And it kind of was a base point or a starting score for the Grand Nationals. And it worked well. We had some guys that didn't run the divisions at all that still placed on the podium at the National, which was really cool to see. That shows how well they did. Ultimately, though, the vision that we see for that event is that we want it to stand on its own. We don't want that. The divisions are the divisions, and this is our National. So for this year, if you never ran our series and you drove halfway across the country and you take the checkered flag on Sunday, you're still the Grand National champion.
You're the man. I like that. Okay, so you're getting ready to roll. What your first race is? Week and a half, right? May 4th, 5th, 6th, I think is the
Correct.
date. Am I correct? Dual series kickoff. Any indications of entry numbers yet? Are you happy with where you are? Even though I know that nowadays everybody seems to want to enter at the very last minute. I don't know why that is these days, but are you looking good right now in terms of entry numbers?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, you always want to see more. And I did actually solve the riddle of why people don't want to register ahead of time.
I'd like to know that.
There's two reasons. One, a lot of people have come from a road racing background, and that's, because of the way that their entries are structured, they do that. But the other is that we've got a lot of people that have never raced in the rain before. And although our series is a rain series and we run in the rain, as long as it's safe, we still have a lot of people who haven't done it before and just aren't willing to take that jump with us yet. So a lot of
man, I love racing in the rain. It's so much fun.
And that's one of the things that I preach to all the clubs and stuff that I talk to is that the amount of driving ability that you gain by learning how to control a kart in the rain will take you so far in any other form of motorsport that you ever want to go to.
I agree. Yep.
But we still have some people that are learning that. So that's why people do that. But no, the entry numbers are looking very good. We have far more people registered at this point than we normally would for a division. You'd expect that with both divisions running together. But we do have a lot of people that run both divisions as well. So it's a really good thing to see that we're seeing numbers like that. The coolest thing, and I looked at this just about 10 minutes ago before we got on the line together. Our biggest two classes as of at least right now are the sportsman and the junior classes.
Oh, that's good.
And that's something that we've been really, really trying to work hard at building up that youth level, because we all need that feeds the beast, like is how we like to say it. And a big part of that too is because the guys at Briggs and Stratton stepped up. Even though we went through all the renaming and all that kind of stuff, Briggs still wanted to be a part of the series, and we still wanted them. We still have a good relationship with them. So what Briggs offered to do, and I believe there are still a few of them left, is Briggs is paying half of the entry fee for any kid racing. So basically anyone in the kid kart, in the sportsman class, or the junior class, Briggs is paying for half of their entry fee.
Well, that's incredible. Again, I shouldn't be surprised. That's what Dave Klaus and the crew at Briggs do. They support it so unbelievably. That's awesome. That's great. Now, all right, Greg, let's wrap this up. Final thoughts. Going into a new season, solidifying things, back to Road America. You went to some new tracks for the first time last year. Just in talking to you and going online and watching your social media, it just really seems like this year is going to be one of those seasons where you're going to, even with the new branding, you're going to have, it's just going to be solid. There's going to be this strength moving into 2018.
I hope so. I really think the leap of faith we took to put on that race at Newcastle and that they took with us is going to pay dividends. Looking through the registrations that we have, I don't think I know a third to half of the names, or people I've never met before that we've never had race with us.
Nice.
In talking to people and going through my emails, we have people coming from New York to this event. We have people coming from Florida to this event. So no, do we expect them to run every divisional race? No, that's probably a lot of traveling that I don't think that we're there yet, but some will. And what that shows me is that we're at least doing something right, to the point where we're going to start drawing more people, and it's going to start growing more and more. And we're going to be able to get this thing to those numbers that we kind of talked about earlier, where, divisional programs used to be where you'd show up to a 4-cycle race and you'd have, 30, 40 guys sitting on the hot grid with you.
Yeah. Well, you're simply, with the departure of the WKA Gold Cup, you're essentially the deal now, right? You're the traveling 4-cycle series with stability and history. And like you said, nothing like sitting with 30 or 40 guys on the grid. You and I have done it at Rock Island. You're doing it now with your program. It's just nice to be on that big grid when you're looking forward to having some fun.
Absolutely. I mean, Gold Cup was an amazing program, and it was the cornerstone of, quite frankly, what a lot of people have built with their other series. I mean, it was just such a good, fun series. And, we look to kind of try to build on that type. And that's what we want to have. We want to have this fun, competitive, and fair atmosphere that people can kind of show up, race, have a good time. And like you said, 30, 40 guys on the grid, 150 to 200 carts in the paddock. It's, we're not there yet, but I think it's on the horizon.
I like to hear that. All right, let me give you the opportunity to give us some contact information. What's the website? So what's your social media accounts? People are obviously going to want to check out what you guys are doing and potentially go racing. There's a lot of Briggs and Stratton 206 guys in the Midwest. There's 200 plus in Ontario that can make a trek down to East Lansing or Newcastle for the Grand National. Here's your opportunity. Give us the contact info.
Well, first and foremost, we have a new website with the rebranding and everything else like we talked about. We did just start from scratch, put a brand new website together. We're still adding content to it every single day as much as we can. So it will grow and get better. So you want to keep checking it back. But that one's very simply www.cupkarts.com. All the information for the Cup Kart Grand National, as well as the Champions Cup, which is our divisional series, all of that will be there. Facebook's pretty simple too. Facebook.com/cupkarts.
Nice. I love it. You know what, Greg? I'm excited. David and I talk about Operation Grassroots. We talk, we do a lot of articles, of course, about the Briggs and Stratton programs all over the country. I had a great interview with Mark Julian from the South Florida Karting Club. He's growing 206 racing down there. The KPX Championship out in Northern California has done wonders for that region. Just, there's these regions that are just growing more and more. And I think we all know that the 206, the affordability of it is what has really just brought people back out to the track, just having fun. I think that's the key. And to see what you guys are doing in the Midwest, I just see it as being such an integral brick, a component of rebuilding that bottom of the pyramid that we need. Actually, not even the bottom of the pyramid. You guys essentially as a regional series or that middle level of the pyramid, but the success that you guys are going to have is going to grow the grassroots club racing as well.
Absolutely. And that's kind of the focus that we've taken is, to get this ladder system built back up, or the pyramid, like you described it, you got to have somewhere to get to. And you mentioned all these great series that are out running around, and some clubs now that are actually getting involved together, like we had done before, that are building these programs. And I think the biggest key that we all need to remember is, first off, whether you're going to use a rule book like ours or a rule book like any of the other sanctioning bodies that are out there, is that you have to enforce them. With 206 specifically, the guys at Briggs have done a great job with this rule book. It's easy to enforce, and we have to do that, because as soon as things like that get out of hand, when you have all these racers come together at whatever event it is, that's when we start to have these problems. We're not the only series that has guys coming in their pickup trucks, or that have guys coming in semi trucks, and having the simple enforceable rule book levels the playing field.
Yeah, 100%. The purity and strict nature of the Briggs rule set is key. Anytime, I've said this 1,000 times, any series that runs a 206 that deviates at all from the Briggs rule set is just making a mistake. Stick with it. Stay consistent from coast to coast. That's what's the great thing about the Briggs Weekly Racing Series. That's what's great about your program. I love it. Well, you know what, Greg? That's been a good interview. This has been good. I'm excited, and now I need to go look at your schedule to see when East Lansing is.
I would love to have you guys. I've always wanted to get you guys to come out to a race. East Lansing.
Well, the Grand Nationals is the same weekend as Streets of Lancaster, which we always go to in California. So I don't know. I'm hating it, but we'll see what happens. Maybe David and I'll do a split weekend again sometime. He'll have to go to Newcastle.
Well, or maybe we need to talk to the guys out there, and we'll for next year, and we'll have to try to make sure we don't schedule on top of each other.
There we go. Let's work on that. Hey, Greg, thank you so much for joining us on the EKN Radio Network. I appreciate it. Operation Grassroots, something near and dear to David and I's heart. And to be able to talk to you guys like this, get this podcast out for people to listen to, and just spread the word of Briggs 206 Racing. I want to thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Greg Jasperson from Cup Karts North America joining us here on the EKN Radio Network. Operation Grassroots, episode number 3. Thank you very much, folks, for tuning in here to the EKN Radio Network. On behalf of Greg and David Cole, I'm Rob Howden. Bye for now.